Right, we have a lesson here on free body diagrams and net force. So this is a continuation on the forces introduction lesson that we started the last day. This is an example. I'd like you to write down the example. I'm going to skip quickly to the solution. I expect you to pause, write down the example, and then the solution's coming up. Okay, so you should pause now while the example is getting written down. Okay, with the hope that you've written down that example, I'll go through the solution on drawing a free body diagram for a cyclist. Okay, so first of all, what is good to do is to make a clear indication on your solution of what is the direction of motion, or what we call the forward direction. It's important with net force, and in this case it's east because he's applying a force of 400 newtons east. So the first thing we gotta do is the free body diagram, and you can see the free body diagram is the circle. I draw one arrow to represent the 400 newtons. It's clearly bigger than the 100 newton. Quick thing is wind resistance. If you know that you're moving in a certain direction, you know, if you're applying a force 400 newtons east for a cyclist, you've got to be moving east. That's the only way that, well, really the only way that makes sense. Wind resistance is always opposing the motion, okay? And then finding the net force is the forward force minus the backward. So it's 400 minus 100 or 300 newtons. Okay? Take time to get that down, but I'm going to skip to the next example. Example number 2. A tennis ball is thrown straight up in the air against an air resistance of 10 newtons. The force of gravity is 40 newtons. So draw a free body diagram and determine the net force. And what is the direction of motion? So please write that down. Pause the tape, write that down. I'm going to skip to the solution now. Okay, hopefully you got the question written down, and now we'll start writing out the solution. First of all, it's thrown straight up in the air, so the direction of motion must be up. And again, that's the first thing that I write in my solution. My free body diagram this is interesting. So the free body diagram, I have gravity, which is always down. I can't think of an example, well, really any practical example has gravity going straight down. Okay, so that's a given that the gravity will be down. The wind resistance this is a little bit misleading, but you have to think to yourself, okay, it's moving up, but if it's moving up, and because wind resistance is always in the opposite direction of motion, it's got to be down. Okay, so the net force is forward minus back, so it's forward is 0, there's nothing pushing it up, which is an interesting and misleading thought. Most people at this point want to say, oh, there's the force of the throw or something like that up. Once you've let go of it, there's no force up. It just is, okay? So when I write it out, then I got my 0, which is my forward. I have minus 40 and minus 10, right? And they're both minuses because they're both against the direction of motion. And so my F net is minus 50, or 50 newtons down, which is, this one's a bit more clear to see when you look at it. And I'm going to say that's a reasonable answer. Put a check mark on that, baby. Okay. So, very misleading. People always want to say some force of throw. It's not there. Once it's in the air, there's no force of a throw anymore. Okay, third example, again, pause this if you need to. It's just saying now we have our tennis ball. It's now traveling downward. So it was up in the air, turned around, and started heading down. And let's see how that changes the free body diagram and the net force. Pause, please, to finish writing out the question, and here comes the solution. So this time, our direction of motion is down. When I draw my free body diagram, I got my 40 newtons down, which is gravity. Gravity is always down. And now, because I'm saying it's moving down, the wind resistance must be up. The air resistance, wind resistance, whatever, must be up. So net force then is down minus up this time, forward minus back, so 30 newtons down. So it's an interesting thing, by the way, because if you think about it, the net force then on the ball when it's on the way up is 50 newtons, and on the way down, it's 30 newtons. It's actually greater on the way up than it is on the way down, which is interesting. And then it leads to great questions like, so considering air resistance, which we don't often, but considering air resistance, you know, what would be faster, the going up or the going down? What would take more time? And I'll leave that with you to think about. Okay, that's it for free body diagrams then. So we'll stop here. That's the end of this video. You can try some questions related or move on to the next video.